Is this thing on? Hard to tell. Yeah, it's on. It's recording. Here we go. Okay. So for this tutorial, I'm going to be drawing a portrait using a reference. I'm not going to be going for something too realistic. I'm going to be going for something a little more stylized, a little more loose. I'm not going to be stressing too much about the reference. I'm not going to try to make it perfect. Instead, I'm just going to show you how I approach the different shapes, and the reference is basically going to provide an anchor for me just to make sure I'm on key, I'm on the right path. It's just something to help orient yourself when you're drawing. Even when I'm trying to draw something from imagination, I'm just trying to make something up. I would usually collect a bunch of pictures and set them up on a mood board so I can extract what I need from various different pictures and incorporate that into my painting or drawing. I'm not going to go over the technical side of the whole thing. I'm not going to go over the mathematics and the geometry and all that stuff, mainly because you can find that stuff literally anywhere. Just go to Google and type, facial proportions or, face measurements, or you can follow old artist guidelines like by Andrew Loomis. Wait, it's something Loomis, I'm pretty sure. But those guys can outline the structure and the guidelines and the proportions and the whole math behind the approach to drawing a face. But what I'm going to be trying to explain, emphasis on the trying, is how I personally approach drawing a face, and what I like to do and how to start something like that, and the kind of guidelines I use to just keep me anchored and to stop me from making any mistakes. But in case you came here to see something more, mathematically oriented, or if you wanted the actual proportions and all that good stuff, then I provided a link in the description below where I go over this kind of a slideshow thing where it goes over all the proportions from the front view and the side view, and how to manipulate that grid so you can do it from all sorts of angles. It only takes a few seconds to leaf through it if you're interested. We come in all shapes and sizes, but these general guidelines will help you stay within a reasonable boundary. I mean, these vary to about, I would say, 10%, but not more. If you get more variations than that, you get some pretty weird looking features. All right. Um, Keep your lines loose and vague. Don't do anything too hard pressed, or don't worry too much if your lines aren't exactly as you want them to be. This first layer that we started up is meant to be scrapped eventually. It's not going to stay there. All it's meant to do is to kind of sculpt out the area you are going to interact with in the future. It's not something that's going to be permanent. So don't worry about it. Don't stress too much. Just lay down some lines where you think they ought to be, and if they're not where they ought to be, then we can tweak them in the future. You don't hear this from a lot of teachers or anything. I haven't come across this kind of advice before, and it's helped me personally. And that just sounds pompous, but it's true. It's true. What it is people tend to draw um, what something ought to look like. For example, when they draw a nose or a mouth or something, they would draw, two big holes where the nostrils were supposed to be, and then a bulb in the center for, the tip of the nose, and then just two vertical lines heading straight up. When they're drawing an eye, they just draw an oval shape and a dot in the middle, or a circle in the middle. And that's usually not what the reference looks like. With these kind of things, less is more, to be honest. And basically, what I'm trying to say is draw exactly what you see. Forget about, momentarily, forget about what you are trying to draw, or what you think this thing should look like, or how you used to draw something. Just look at the shapes, the lines. Try to imagine how it would look like on that piece of paper, and just replicate the lines you see. Try to add weight to the lines where the shape is more well formed, and try to, add lighter lines everywhere else. And you can just leave it blank for the places where you're not sure if the shadows don't really pop up too much, you can just leave that blank and it'll give it a kind of stylized feel. By line weight, I mean how hard you press your pen down to adjust the thickness and the darkness of the line. The image you have in your head is typically not as clear as you think it is. I mean, for example, if I tell you to imagine an elephant with a pink hat, I mean, most people could probably vouch for being able to do that. But once you go to a piece of paper and hold a pen and you try to accurately draw this elephant with a pink hat, I don't mean in a cartoon way, but like the actual elephant, like a real life elephant, they struggle, and it's not entirely because of uh, lacking in technical skill. It's partly because your 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 mind uses cues and hints to tell you that you are imagining something, but you don't actually see every individual and specific detail. What it what it feels like to me after trying to draw from imagination for so long is it seems clear at first, but what it actually looks like is people imagine it's like a pristine, crystal clear image, but it's really not. It's more of a haze. So, moral of the story, use your reference, folks. Even the people that draw from imagination aren't exactly doing that per se. What they typically do is they reference a memory bank in their head of all these things they've drawn before. So if a person has gone through a million different references, he has this amazingly huge bank in their head, which they can just pull out whatever they need and and draw it out from experience. So the best way, if you're trying to draw from imagination, which a lot of people are, myself included, what I recommend is just go crazy with references. Use as many references as you can. And eventually, those images will just get hammered into your head and you'll just know how to move the pencil in accordance with that memory. And eventually, you won't specifically need references, but that doesn't mean you should stop using them. References are not to be, if someone uses references, it's not something to be looked down upon at all. It's like looking down at a carpenter for using his tools. It's something vital. It's something that can only help you. And the warp tool is something that is pretty incredible. That and the transform tool I would recommend you use a lot while you draw. I mean, we are using a digital medium, might as well take advantage of that. The warp tool is basically a lower resolution version of the liquify tool. What it does is it maps out this grid, and then you can just like shove this grid around elastically. You can kind of nudge things to where you think they ought to go without being too specific about it and stuff. And the transform option is a more rigid variation of that, where you can move the corners around and change the size of the selection you chose. That it's incredibly useful when drawing at all stages, not just the beginning. Even towards the end, if you found a mistake that you could fix. The liquify tool is a much more versatile option, but I recommend minimizing the use of that thing because it's honestly it's a bit too powerful. If you get used to it too much, you start to abuse it, and then your drawing skills will take a hit because of it. Because it's so uh, if you use it a lot, you will just never be punished for making a incorrect drawing. You can always fix it with the liquify tool. And yeah, that's about the gist of what I was hoping to get through in this tutorial. The rest of it is just going to be me finishing up this piece, so feel free to mute it and put on your own music and just enjoy, I suppose.